Think we're getting close. I think we're
There we
getting.
go.
Oh, I think we're there. I think
Happy
we're there.
Thanksgiving, Ben.
Happy Thanksgiving, Michael. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How about you?
Well, aside from our 10 minutes of technical difficulties trying to get on the air this morning, I guess we're okay. Something's hinky with the internet here. I guess I don't know.
Maybe
Um,
it's the board of AI shutting everything down.
yeah, yeah. There's nothing I like more than reading about millionaires' troubles, billionaires' troubles. I mean,
Well, they rehired him today.
yeah, yeah. For my money, they could all, go somewhere else. To find a country. Go. All this AI stuff is really starting to get. Everything is AI now. I saw Crest toothpaste the other day with AI on it. Oh, please. I'm kind of done with the whole AI thing, and it hasn't
Artificial
even really started
intelligence.
yet. Where look, it's going.
Artificial. Well, let's get artificial intelligence to brush our teeth 3 times a day, and then we've got something. Of course, the problem is because they claim that the artificial intelligence is smarter than a human. Sooner or later, and I can consult with George Orwell to make sure I'm right. Sooner or later, that power will be abused.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this is probably what'll bring the world to an end. At this point, or a world as we know it. I mean, we may wind up all being slaves
To Donald Trump.
to the robots. I don't know.
Does Donald Trump plan to pass on the presidency to his son?
Yeah, I'm sure he does. I'm sure that Uday then Kusei will try to get it. But you know what, Michael? I mean, I don't know. Like I said, it's this guy is so ludicrous, so off the charts that it's like a comic book. The only thing you can really do with him is pray that he's not going to get elected president. That people aren't going to be stupid enough to elect him, right?
But Americans are traditionally poised to be just about that stupid. We
Well, we did it once already, so
we're
it
rather
wouldn't.
we're rather famous for it.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like we hadn't done it before. It would be like it'd be like some guy goes to let's put it in Donald Trump terms. It's like some guy goes to a hooker, gets VD from the hooker, and then sees the hooker again and says, "Oh, I want to go with her." Goes back with her and gets another dose of the clap. That's what we're up for, a 4-year dose of the clap if he gets elected.
A slight change of topic. I have an update on the Italian bakery that you put me on to.
Yes, let's talk about the Italian bakery. That's a fun thing. How did it go?
Well, it has a sad ending. The Italian bakery is no longer there. It did not survive the pandemic.
Well,
And you can say here in Pasadena, there's a place called Old Town with bars, restaurants, Tiffany's. It's a place where everybody goes when they come to the Rose Bowl game. It's the parade goes right through there. Colorado Boulevard goes right through there, and it's a hot spot.
it's with a little old lady from Pasadena.
She goes there. She goes there to
Down
get her.
College.
She goes to the sunglass hut to get her
Yeah,
shades.
yeah. That's where I would expect that from her.
And not far from there is Rusnick Motors, which you would love because it's the dealer for Maserati, Bentley, Rolls Royce, Porsche. It has all the luxury brands right on there on Colorado Boulevard.
Yeah, I could fit into a couple of those.
If you want to drive by and just see what a Rolls Royce looks like in the showroom, go to Rusnick, Ruznak Motors, right there in Old Town. Anyway, the pandemic was not good to Old Town. It was not a beneficial thing. People didn't want to go to bars and restaurants and Tiffany's, and
Right.
people did not want to go shopping to buy a new Bentley. So there are a number of dark areas in Old Town that were never dark before, places that just don't have a business anymore. Same for Lake Avenue, right here, and Shops on Lake, which is not far from our house, right near the University California Institute of Technology, Caltech.
Yeah.
And Federico's Italian Bakery did not make the cut like so many others. It's
It's a shame.
dark. So I punted because I was still in charge of pies, or not pies necessarily, but desserts. Our family was responsible for desserts, so I contacted the shop nearby here in LA and in Orange County. There's a place called the Pie Hole, and the Pie Hole agreed to supply us with 2 pumpkin pies, 1 pecan pie, and 1 blueberry crumble. So I'm picking those up at 11 o'clock this morning.
Well, now let me ask you a dumb question. Could have you not gotten the pie anywhere else, or is there something special about the pie hole pies, or?
They make them for you, and it's not a Safeway pie. It's a
Okay,
it's
I, I
it's an
mean, I
ac
just
it's an
know
ac
if
it's
there's
a
anything.
it's an
We have
actu
somebody up here in Edmonton that's doing something similar like that. I guess they're making pies out of their house.
well, if they have the talent, that could be good.
So there's yeah. So I just read about it in the local Edmonds paper, and this woman, and now it's only a matter of time until somebody calls the Snohomish County Department of Health, and sometime next year they'll probably get down here and lock her up or something like that for doing this. But so far, it sounds like she's doing a land office business, man. Sounds like she's just banging it out with pies, and I
So
haven't
they
tried
so
her
they want her
pie.
they want her to buy a business license and a neon light, right?
Well, and yeah, you see, you're in this kind of space now that's interesting when it comes to this kind of stuff because now if she goes and buys a panel truck and sits outside her house and makes pies, they probably won't bother her.
Because she's a
But
food
because
truck.
she's running the business out of her house, you know, there's all kinds of health regulations where, the food trucks don't seem to be subject to those same health regulations. At least in most places. I'm sure if you have a food truck in New York City, you probably have to have an inspection or something like that. Or probably in LA, I would think you would have to also.
There's so many of them here.
Yeah. Well, they're all over the place now. I mean, a food truck is a common. I was watching a YouTube video about a thing in was it El Paso, Texas, and the street was lined with food trucks. I mean, it's a thing. They have that show, the Great American Food Truck Race, where these guys take their food trucks and they race across the country.
And cooking as they go.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's a great movie too. I saw it probably about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, called Chef. Um, and it's John Favreau he wrote it and directed it and everything, and he works in a restaurant, and the restaurant fires him, and so he says, "Okay, I'm going to go buy a food truck." And he buys a food truck and makes these great tacos, and it's a great, him and his son do the taco thing. His son is 13, 14 years old, and the wife falls back in the ex-wife falls back in love with him, and it's a whole thing. Um, Great
Can you
story.
can you park your food truck in front of the old restaurant that fired you?
I
Probably.
think actually he did something close to that. I don't know if he parked it in front of it, but he might have parked it like down the block or something like that. And everybody was coming to him for tacos. Everywhere he would say he bought the food truck in Florida. And he was making was he making tacos or was he no, you know what? He was making Cuban sandwiches.
Mhm.
That's what he was making. He was making Cuban sandwiches. And he bought the truck and they cleaned it up, and him and the kid and somebody else, I forget who was with him. They're all, they're making their money. They're paying for their trip by cooking on the road. So they buy this truck in Miami. It has, the sandwiches guanos on the side, and they're driving all across the country. And where they stop, they're selling Cuban sandwiches to people. So it's a cute little story. I like John Favreau, but I just like the whole story.
Cuban sandwiches are for the most part hot pork.
Yeah, pork and pickles. Can't go wrong with pork and pickles, man.
Impossible. Now, what kind
Although
of
I
bread?
gotta
Do they
tell
do it
you,
on a roll or do they do it on a rye?
no, it's on a roll. Although I gotta say that the Cuban sandwiches I had in Cuba were not as good as the Cuban sandwiches that I've had here.
They can learn something from the food truck
Yeah,
improvement.
well, you can't get the spices in Cuba.
Uh,
It's hard to get the spices because of the trade embargo. They don't get a lot of spices.
they get plenty
So
of spices in Miami.
yeah, oh yeah, in Miami, I mean, you get a great Cuban, but to get it in Cuba, I don't know if they got to smuggle them in or they're rationed or whatever it is. I think people actually. Somebody was telling me, a guy that owned one of the Paladars was telling me that they have to have people. They tell people if they're coming, back from the United States or back from wherever,
Bring
bring
saffron.
spices. Yeah,
Yeah.
bring. I mean, of course, we can't get them here. I mean, it's tough to get any kind of food there, but to certainly get the spices, spices there is a luxury. We take salt for granted. And they they fight each other for it. They get like 2 grams a month or something like that.
So I'm sorry to report that Federico's, by the way, it's spelled the same way as Danny Federico of the E Street Band.
Well, he's Federici.
Federici. Yes, it's Federici's.
Yeah, Federici's okay.
Okay. Anyway, they're gone. And it's a shame because it was a long-standing Pasadena Italian bakery. It did not make the cut.
Well, I saw something that could be a solution for you, but you got the pie, so you got it covered. But I was
Yeah.
thinking if you had an ethnic grocery somewhere near there, you could probably call up and see if they had cannoli shells, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Trader Joe's is selling cannoli dip.
You stuff them.
Stuff your own cannolis, man. Get yourself some chocolate chips, put them in there. I mean, cannoli. I mean, the cannoli cheese is easy to do. It's just mascarpone and chocolate chips or the candied fruits and some sugar.
And remember, leave the gun, but
And take the cannoli.
yep.
So, Michael, it's 60 years today.
Where were you?
I was at St. Joan of Arc in the third grade,
How touching.
and
How
all of a
symbolic.
sudden there was like kind of a buzz going through the building.
Mhm.
You could hear the doors were moving and nuns were crying, and you had that whole, because don't forget, to us, Kennedy was a hero because he was the first Catholic president. And in my neighborhood, we had a lot of much more Irish than there were Italians. So it was a big deal for the Irish. I mean, my mother's side of the family. I mean, I grew up with a picture of Kennedy in the house. The Pope and Kennedy were in the house.
Which pope is that? Pius the 12th?
No, that was Pope John the 23rd, I think. Yeah, and then he died. Yeah, but when Kennedy it was Pope John, because then Paul came after him, and then after him came John Paul the First, and we know what happened to him. 37 days and goodbye. But it was interesting because we had just gotten televisions
Wow.
in our classrooms. It was I don't think we had them a month. I mean, we started school in September. They probably installed them in October, and this was November. So I don't think we even had. And I remember there were these huge metal RCA industrial-looking televisions on a big cart. And I remember they classrooms would share them. They'd go back and forth between the classrooms. So I remember them rolling the cart into the classroom from the other classroom, and all the kids from that other classroom coming in and sitting in our classroom. And then they turned it on, and he hadn't died yet. It was just that, I don't know, I forget what station we were watching, but it was still the president has been hurt, there's been an incident, da da da, which today they probably wouldn't do, right? Because today they'd say, we don't want you showing our kid this kind of stuff.
No, they
But
didn't know. They didn't know what they were going to be showing you.
yeah, they had no idea.
It was television's first challenge of that sort.
Yeah, and then I guess probably around 1 o'clock our time, which would have been, or maybe 2 o'clock our time, they let us go home. And so by the time we had gone from St. John's to home, which for me was 5 blocks, 6 blocks, something like that. When I had gotten home, I remember my mother was crying. My little sister was there. She was crying. He was dead by the time I got home.
I think he was probably dead before he got to Parkland.
He was dead the second the bullet hit his head. I mean, it blew his head off. But we didn't know that at the time,
No.
I mean, we were all praying in school for him to be okay. Now, where were you?
Redwood High School, German class. My teacher was Tad Baugh. And we didn't have televisions in the room, but we had speakers in the room where announcements could be made. They had the daily bulletin, which would be read to the students. When I was vice president of the high school, I would read the daily bulletin my first announcing job. It was all written for me, but I could sneak little announcements in periodically. And the voice over the loudspeaker was Paul Bosky, the dean of boys, who said President Kennedy has been shot and is dead.
Wow.
And Tad Baugh, the German teacher, always rubbed his lips when he spoke or when he considered something, and he said, maybe there's been a mistake. Maybe there's been some sort of a mistake. We have to hope that.
Yeah.
But then it was lunchtime, and all the kids were out. That's where we had one television in what we called the CEA, the covered eating area at Redwood High School in Larkspur. And that's when we found out that Tippett had been shot and that they had a suspect that they were looking for. The rest of the day, I don't know. I can't tell you how. I think we did not dismiss class. I think we finished the day.
Yeah, we got out an hour early, and just turned on the TV, and I think we probably stayed. What I remember is the TV didn't go off. You know how TV used to at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
go, do the Star Spangled Banner, and that was it. And see you at 6 o'clock in the morning for sunrise semester.
Show you the test pattern, yeah.
Yeah, and the test pattern. And I remember that because we all stayed. It was a Thursday, right? Or Friday? Friday.
It was
and
a
I
Friday.
remember that, we stayed up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. The whole block was up. I mean, everybody on the block, everybody's house was, lit up, and everybody was just glued to it. And every once in a while you'd see, and then my father was he closed the gas station early and came home. I think he closed around 6 o'clock or something like that, and came home. And then we watched, the whole weekend. I mean, I know I slept that weekend, but I think we were in front of the television. And the one thing I remember is that Channel 11, which was one of the independents,
WPIX,
they showed, instead of showing, I guess they weren't hooked up with a network or anything like that. So they showed the movie PT 109
Wow.
with Cliff Robertson, just back to back to back to back to back. They just kept running PT 109.
That was a good filler. That made sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that made sense. It's all you could do, right? And I mean, then we went to
Till
church on
Sunday.
Sunday,
Till Sunday morning when the cleanup began.
and then I remember watching Oswald get shot. You know, we were watching. I go, we're going to get to see the guy who killed the president.
Yep.
And well, you know how that turned out.
Well, I
Used,
know
okay,
I
I'm
know
sorry.
that there are a number of facts in question, and we didn't know it then, but it became obvious soon thereafter that something was afoot, something was amiss, something didn't make sense. Especially all the eyewitnesses from that day who knew there were shots fired from the knoll.
Yeah, you now have you been there at all?
No.
See, I've been a few times. And yeah, you look at when you go up into that 6th floor of the book depository, and you look down at Dealey Plaza. You just realize, even if you're not a gun expert or a marksman or anything like that, you
Is that
just
right?
realize that this freaking guy had to be the best shot in the world to get the result he got. You know, he's hitting a moving target at, I don't know, 1,000 feet with a mail order rifle. Please. You know, so you know, it's really eerie when you go there. I mean, I was there when they were doing remember in 75, 76, they did the reenactment.
Mm-hmm.
I was down there for that. My brother and I were going out west, and we stopped in Dallas and we watched them doing, you know, they had the whole thing roped off, but you could stay far enough away. And so I've probably been there a bunch of times. I don't even remember how many times, because every time we would go through Dallas, I would stop there.
Well, my mother
And
was from Texas, a little town called Roxton, which is not far from a little town called Paris, which is sort of a neighbor of Dallas, Fort Worth. And she advised me not to go to Texas. She said, "I don't believe you get along there." It was good advice.
and I didn't. One time I went. A good friend of mine's brother, uh, Bill Zivick, worked for UPI, and he had the police beat. So he actually took us down into the garage and showed us. They were still in the old building there. He took us down into the garage and actually showed us the actual spot where Oswald got shot.
If you remember the satirical show That Was the Week That Was on the air during those days, and they awarded the Dallas Police Department as best comedy group of the year.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we'll never know. Well, I don't know if we'll know in our lifetime. Someday. The only thing that makes me wonder about it is that how many people can keep a secret like that? I mean, that had to be a pretty large conspiracy.
Good conspiracies are small, though.
Yeah, but they, larger ones usually get found out because somebody inevitably talks.
I think that under modern day conditions of regular journalism and investigative journalism, they would have never escaped fuller scrutiny.
Probably not. Yeah. I would agree with that 100%. But I don't know that they would get away. Well, I don't know that they would get away with it. They still could do it, but I don't know that because first of all, people. I mean, some idiot would shoot the president and put it on social media. This is me,
I got him.
Yeah, and they take a video of themselves doing it and then think nothing's going to happen, just like the clowns that did January 6th. Yeah, let me take a picture of myself taking a dump on Nancy Pelosi's desk. It's I always used to like to do this topic when I was doing a regular talk show on on this day, the 22nd, November 22nd. So what would America look like today if that day hadn't happened? What do you think we would be today?
Well, would we have avoided the Vietnam War under Kennedy? It didn't look like it.
Yeah, it looked like he was heading into it no matter what. Now, I don't think it would have gone on as long.
And would he have been elected to 2 terms?
That's a great question also.
And if not, who would have run against him? Would Nixon have run again against Kennedy? Probably.
Yeah, because he was still 4 years away from Romney, George Romney, and who else was there? There was Goldwater, who they had as a candidate. I don't know how he ever wound up being a candidate.
Well, we'll see. That was the first step toward the John Birch Society instead of a free and democratic nation.
Yeah, that was the 60s version
Republicans have been able to juggle this dichotomy for a while. We're the minority party, and we can't win based on our pledge to America. But we can say we're going to screw things up for the right people. If you vote for us, we're going to you come help me. I'll go for them. I'll take care of the opposition. I'll take care of the right wingers. I'll take care of the left wingers. I'll take care of the communists. We'll put them all down. Hey, let's get some camps going, and we can. There's lots of room in Texas, and they don't seem to care. We'll just detain people until they see the light.
Yeah. I wonder if it you didn't think it at the time, but the more you learn about history and go back and look at it, I wonder if Kennedy would have gotten the civil rights bill passed. I mean, he wanted it to pass, but it was Johnson's maneuvering,
his arm twisting.
And would he have been in that position, or would he have even wanted to do that if he were the vice president? Because Johnson, as we read now, wasn't exactly the best of friends with Kennedy.
No, they weren't. They weren't buddies.
And so would have Johnson wanted to put Kennedy in a position to get a win like that? Would have we had the Great Society? Would have we had the war on poverty? There would have been great ideas, but would have he had the legislative push?
Well, the Democrats had the Senate in those days, so they, I think they controlled both houses, and that made legislation far easier than it is now. In fact, now it's impossible.
Well, and you also had a lot of wheeling and dealing.
But the Southern Democrats were, before they aligned themselves with the Republicans later on in their career, they were Democrats in name, but they voted like Republicans.
Right. They are what you see as Republicans today. Right. Radical right, racist,
obstructionists, willing to lie.
You look at I mean, we forget George Wallace was a Democrat. Lester Maddox, I believe, was a Democrat.
Strom Thurmond,
all Democrats, but they were Dixiecrats.
They were
what they called them, and they didn't like Kennedy. Part of the reason that Johnson got on the ticket
was to get the South.
Was because they couldn't have done it without him. And they needed Kennedy, they needed Johnson, and they needed literally to buy West Virginia. They literally bought. The old man went down there and bought votes
And Texas, of course, was a swing state. It was Democrat in those days, but also the Speaker of the House, Sam Rayburn, was from Texas. So
right.
Texas was an important fulcrum that needed to be seen to.
Right. And Johnson, of course, was, if Rayburn was the most powerful, honestly, I don't know if Rayburn, I'm not sure if Rayburn was more powerful than Johnson. He might have been the Speaker of the House, but it appeared that Johnson was kind of running things by then for the Democrats.
He had great influence over his peers.
Yeah. And he was, and so it was, so I don't know. I don't know. I used to think that Kennedy wouldn't have stayed in Vietnam. He would have gone over there, saw the crap show that he had gotten into, and gotten rid of McNamara and who was it? Was it McGeorge Bundy and some of those other guys that were
General Westmoreland.
General Westmoreland, all of these guys that were pushing him because we needed a war. You can't have a country if you don't have a war going on.
Can't have an army without a war. What's the point of having an army?
We need an army. What are they going to do? Sit around and clean streets? Now, luckily, later in life, later in our history, Donald Trump figured out that you can use them against people, our own people.
They've all got guns.
They got guns. Well, I mean, why pay police? We got the army.
By the way, with all the references to how Trump's going to use our own military to control our population, you know who's never said a word?
Who?
The military. They haven't said, "Don't be silly. We can't do that. That's against the law. We can't use force against our own people and our own country with our own military." Well, instead, they said nothing. Like, I think I don't want to comment.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they said things publicly, but I'm pretty sure Mark Milley told him that that you couldn't do it.
But Milley's retiring. They'll get somebody else.
Oh, he's gone already. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they'll get. No. This time around, it'll be different. I mean, don't make no mistake about it. This time around, if Trump gets elected, and I feel even bad saying Trump's name in the same conversation as John Kennedy,
because you're spoiling the pumpkin pies every time you say it.
But I think we would have been. I think we would have been much more advanced with the arts. I think that we would have been more physically fit as a nation.
The presidential fitness challenge.
Yeah, if you remember, they always had that. He was what was it? Vigor, and vigor. Who was the guy that used to do the Kennedy? Vaughn Meter.
Vaughn Meter lost his career. He had one very big record and then nothing.
Yeah, I think I have that record actually. Vaughn
Meter.
Called
the first. I think it's called The First Family.
Yeah. Yes. And it was pretty funny actually, but it went nowhere because not long after he put it out,
yep,
Kennedy got assassinated. You know what other record was a casualty of that date?
I can't think. What
the Phil Spector Christmas album was originally released on November 22nd, 1963.
Wow, sing along if you know the words.
Yep. And it just, who was buying records at that point?
What about Letterman's show? I didn't see it. What did he do?
Oh, it was great. It was great. He came out and he sat and he talked to Colbert. And in the last segment, before they introduced the National, because they talked a little bit about music and, what was David's favorite band that Dave's favorite band, and he went with the Foo Fighters as his
Um,
musical highlight. I found that interesting.
I
I
thought
know he
Steely
liked,
Dan.
huh?
I thought he would choose Steely Dan. He had him on.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I almost thought that if they asked him a question, because you know me, I did the interview in my head before Colbert, and I didn't think Colbert was really that good at interviewing him, to be honest with you.
He's got some problems with staying focused.
Yeah, there was 4 or 5 questions, I think easy questions that he missed. That but he just became too much of a fanboy.
Yeah.
It looked like, but be that as it may, what I thought was interesting. I always thought the musical highlight, and maybe I think this, and as a father, you think this too, but late in the history of the show, Paul Schaefer put together, I guess Letterman's kid, Harry, had asked him about MacArthur Park. What does it mean? You know, the cake and the whole, it didn't make sense to the kid. It's going, they're in the park, they got cake, they got rain. So Dave had Jim Webb come in and with Will Lee singing lead, did MacArthur Park to so he could explain the song to Harry. And I thought, damn, I mean, how cool is it I mean, you could buy the record and slip it on the thing and say, this is what, but here, all right, kid, watch the show tonight at 11:30.
I'm remembering now when the song first came out, a number of people recorded it, but it was the actor Richard Harris
Right.
that made a big splash with it, and he really couldn't sing, but he acted the part of the
Yes.
singer and did a great job. Really, I think probably the best version of the song.
Yeah, I don't think there's a better version of the song. I've heard a lot of different versions of that song, and nothing touches. I mean, it was so good that they played it on AM radio when the average song length on AM radio was about 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
He had to be under 3 minutes if you wanted to hit. And how long was
And
MacArthur Park?
I think it was
5
7 minutes,
minutes?
wasn't it?
7 minutes? Wow. Well, with all the orchestration, yeah.
Yeah, if you played the full, I think the single version was 7 minutes because remember it was known as the bathroom record. um,
My bathroom record was always Traffic, Little Spark of High Heel Boys.
yep. Or you could go with Inagata Davida, but that was if you had stomach problems. uh, got the park. Let's see. We got the park song. No, I don't want the.
7 minutes and 28 seconds.
Yeah, I know it was over 7. And I guess the association was supposed to record it, and for some reason, they didn't want to do it, which I thought was interesting.
And he took that personally. Or if he didn't, but I mean Jimmy Webb, then the producer Bones Howe did.
I would have definitely got, that was such an incredible, but I could understand also, again, like you said, um, if it was over 3 minutes, it wasn't going to get played, or 3.5 at the top.
Also, you can listen to that song when you're distracted, not giving it full concentration, and say, "What is this nonsense?"
I fell in love with that song when I heard it. The first time I remember hearing it, the first time it was like so different. It made me want to go to MacArthur Park. Um, yeah, it was. I mean, it's a heck of it. It's a heck of a collage, of just all different stuff about this guy's. I guess I guess Webb didn't Webb write it about a love affair he had or something like that.
It was a little bit difficult to figure out what he wanted to say, but it was impressionistic, and it was a
Well,
time
it
for
was.
that, and we
Yeah, I
welcomed
mean,
that.
it was the I don't know, was it a musical version of a Van Gogh or a Picasso or
More like a Picasso than a Van
yeah,
Gogh, I
more like a
think.
Picasso, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, um
And Richard Harris did not sing for a living. He didn't have a follow-up album that I remember that was bigger than the first one. It was a left field hit that came from from nobody's expectations. Nobody expected that song to be released or Richard Harris to have the version, but the lyrics caught everyone's imagination.
well, it's interesting because the B side of that record was also I don't know how much of a hit it was around the country, but it was a big hit in New York after MacArthur Park faded, didn't we? Was the B side. ABC Dunhill, I believe, was the label.
You're
Because
right.
I remember I had the record. That was, yeah, that was kind of the beginning of Jimmy Webb too, wasn't it?
Put him on the map.
Oh, yeah, close to the,
But
close
it was
to.
Glenn Campbell that kept him there.
This time we must make pieces fit.
It's syrupy.
Oh yeah. Oh, didn't we? Oh yeah. It's like it's almost the syrupy as Second Avenue
Yeah,
by Tim Moore or Art, but Art Garfunkel had the hit, but Tim Moore wrote it
right.
and sang it originally, and then Garfunkel picked it up. But that's about as syrupy as it gets. That and 6 out of 8 songs from Jim Croce.
Operator.
Oh, would you help me take this call? But hey, sold a ton of records. And and listen, Webb, I mean, by the time I get to Phoenix and
Wichita lineman.
Wichita Lineman, which I still think may be the greatest country song ever. I mean, it was a pop hit also, but
He can feel his girlfriend through the wires that
yeah,
he's working
yeah.
on.
I mean, what a job Glenn Campbell did singing that song, man. I mean, he took that song and owned it. And it's funny because I've heard a lot of different versions of that song, and I've never heard anybody sing it as well as Glenn Campbell.
It's hard to sing. It's a challenge for anybody because you have to have a wide range to get to those notes.
I mean, I saw him do that live, in his last tour when he was touring with his daughter, and I mean, I was almost in tears listening to him do it. I was just, I mean, probably because of the situation as well, but
But also, he had a remarkable voice, and he got his start in the Wrecking Crew as
yeah,
a studio musician.
played with the Beach Boys, I think, too. For
I saw him with the Beach Boys.
Did you see him with the Beach Boys?
He played bass.
Yeah, he was. He it's funny. The guys that there are singers, some singers, not just guys, and women are too. That you go back and you listen to some of the stuff that you thought back then was pop,
Right.
and then you go back and you see, I kind of missed that. Yeah, I mean, if you were into psychedelic rock, Glenn Campbell didn't make much sense to you. because it was pop music, and but when you go back and you become a little more educated about music and you listen to it, you start to realize how freaking good is this.
Remarkable voice. I
Yeah,
saw him
it's
at
like who you call it from the Brooklyn Bridge is like that.
Johnny
Johnny
Maestro.
Maestro
Yeah.
was like that, where those were again another Jimmy Webb song, right?
Right.
And
It's funny, back in those days, people who were just songwriters like Burt Bacharach, Jimmy Webb, neither one of them could sing a lick. They do
yeah,
their own song. They do their own songs. You just go, thank God Dionne Warwick did that for you because you can't sing it.
it would have never got anywhere if you was singing it, pal. Herb Alpert singing Jimmy Webb stuff, which always was a phenomenon. But those records is always interesting to me because at the time so many people were into the harder rock. I mean, by that 67, 68, 69.
Well, Richard Harris had the hit in '68, so that's exactly
Yeah,
what you're
I
talking
think that
about.
was the number one record in 1960. I forget, was it Green Berets was the number one record in 67?
According to
And then
WABC.
MacArthur Park was the number one record in 68. Boy, now I got to try to remember what 69 was. 69, I think, might have been 69 might have been Let It Be. Not Let It Be. Hey Jude, I'm sorry.
Hey Judy, 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 Judy.
Yeah, I think Hey Jude was the number one in 69.
Wow.
Although that was released in 68, wasn't it? I thought it was. But I think that was the yeah, those were definitely different days. Now,
Hey Jude, don't make
I'm trying to find a date on this, but
I think it was released in 68.
Vehicle explosion at the border.
Yeah, it was released in 68
what's that?
on the White
Vehicle
Album.
explosion at the Canadian border by Niagara Falls somewhere.
Really? So on the International Bridge, I guess.
Who's on the bridge, Vinny?
The bridge that goes by Niagara Falls is called the International Bridge, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes from Tonawanda, New York to I forget the town just right by Niagara Falls. Might
What's going
actually
on?
be Niagara Falls. Let me look quick on Google and see what
What's going on?
yeah. Border explosion. Isn't America beautiful these days? Niagara border crossings closed after explosion. Oh, the Rainbow Bridge. All Western New York. All Western New York border crossings are closed. Yeah, they shut down both bridges there. It's the Peace Bridge and the Rainbow Bridge. The International Bridge is in Detroit. I'm sorry. And then they're going to have the new bridge in Detroit. From
So there was a vehicle explosion on the bridge.
yeah.
At the
Well,
border.
who knows what that is, though? I mean, that's
Something blue.
well, it could be somebody's car. Somebody was driving a Pinto. Somebody hit it in the rear and it
The
blew
famous
up.
exploding Pintos.
Hey,
Not every car that you buy from the Ford Motor Company is willing to explode. Some just won't. Remember the Ford? I've had a friend who called his car the Ford Exploder, not the Explorer.
yeah. Well, those the Explorers were exploding too. As a matter of fact, they had to recall all of them and put a shield because the
deflection shield.
Yeah, the way they placed the gas tank, Ford has a thing for putting the gas tank right behind the rear bumper. And they put it like that in the police editions of the Explorer. So that, so if they got popped in the butt
Boom.
by another car, they would blow up. So they had to change. I don't know if I know they put a shield in, and they might have actually changed the position of the gas tank in later models.
They are fully engaged, offering all necessary support. I do want to go back to CNN's John Miller for a moment, because John, as you were reporting, your sources have shared with you that there were 2 suspects in this.
Well, Vinny, I got to go pick up those pies. Have a happy Thanksgiving. It's great to see you. We love you. Our next big challenge is to get into the Christmas spirit, whether we like it or not.
You know what? I'm going to get into. I don't care about anything. I'm going to get into the Christmas spirit, unless, of course, something bizarre happens. But you know what? Just think of the stuff. As crappy as it is, we still got more than anybody else, man. You know, I mean, it's the truth. We have so much that we should be thankful for it and make sure that we help other people with what we got, right?
That's absolutely the case.
All right, my friend.
Love you, Vinny. Have a great day.
Happy Thanksgiving. Talk to you on Friday.
Okay, Friday it is. All right,
happy Thanksgiving, Kristen.
Vinny says, happy Thanksgiving, Kristen.
Happy Thanksgiving, Vin.
Happy Vinny.
All right, be good. Talk to you later. Thank you all for listening. We will catch up with you on Friday morning if the Lord's will and the creek don't rise. And, of course, at the dinner table this year, a little peace, a little love, and a big-ass bottle of Manischewitz.
What a wine.
See you, Mikey.
See you, Vin.